Hi everyone and welcome to Tarot Training. In this tutorial you will get a series of videos that will give you a really good understanding on how to ask a really good tarot question to have better results, how to read card combinations, how to do intuitive reading, so without really any cards you can do an intuitive read, and how to incorporate your intuition into the tarot readings. You combine intuition and tarot reading. And also how to do belief work on yourself, to change belief, basically to get the mindset in the best way possible for you to have the best result for yourself. And then we're going to even do a soul family call out. For a lot of people, once you are with your soul family and you have those connections in your life will improve just by having the right people in your life. So this is really more than just a tarot course. It's actually also a bit of self-development. It is intuitive training, and it is healing as well. So a little bit about me. I have been reading the tarot since I was probably around 18, 19, and that's a long time ago now. I'm 41 this year. And so I really have been really a tarot enthusiast for quite some time. My background is also in theta healing as well. And at the moment I'm really excited to learn Qigong and Qi meditations and basically how to connect to life force to have better connection to my body, my soul, and my intuition. So whatever background you have, you can most likely incorporate that really well in your life. Even if the tarot is a tool that you like to use, you can incorporate everything that you are and make your readings really unique and special. So don't be afraid to use your skills and your talents to do this type of work as well. The tarot to me is really just a tool to get answers, and if the mindset is a bit negative, then often the question is a bit of a reflection on that. So the question then often is, you really hung up in the outcome. So with the tarot, if you really hung up in the outcome, then the best thing is actually to put the tarot away. Don't do tarot if you feel really hung up in the outcome. The best time to use the tarot is when you are a bit more open to what the outcome could be. So for example, let's say you want to manifest a soulmate, but you're not hung up in it has to be that particular person. You're not maybe hung up in your ex, or maybe you're really hung up in somebody. Because when you're manifesting a soulmate and you're asking the tarot card to choose your soulmate, you're not necessarily going to get the person you want it to be. So it's best to be open. You're asking about something that maybe you don't even know anything about. So let's say you're asking about career and you really want one type of career, but maybe your career path is actually going to be something completely different. When I started my career path, I actually started it more in the world of science and not creativity, not anything what I'm doing now. If I had known that I was going to have this complete life change, I wouldn't have even believed that, back in those days. So you don't know all the twists and turns your life is going to take, and your real true talent and skills might come a little later in life. So a lot of people in their 30s and in their 40s actually will reinvent themselves. So the tarot will give you a lot of surprises. When you look into them, you might be very surprised at what you're going to see. So you don't always know, and if you really hung up that the answer has to be something very specific and it's not that, then the tarot can then be more like a reflection on a frustration. So if that happens, not to worry, because we're going to do changing of mindset. So there are tools you can use to change your mindset, because that's really important, especially with tarot. So how to ask a good question. So instead of asking, for example, will this happen, or will that happen, or will I get married, or will I be with my soulmate, or will I, instead of asking those more like yes and no questions are very charged, because if you get a no, more likely a no, then that can really play on the mind and the psyche of the person asking. A better question is, how can I best manifest my soulmate? How can I best achieve, meeting someone that I can marry? And, or, think about your dream. So let's say, your dream is to be married. So instead of asking, will I get married? How can I find someone to marry, or how can I find someone to have a very happy relationship with? And then you need to do a little bit of mind work. What does a good, positive, happy relationship feels like and look like to you? So it's very subjective. It's a very bad idea to compare yourself to others while you do this work, because there is a plan for you that is completely different from any other person on the planet, and you're on your own fool's journey. You're on your own quest. The fool's journey is the hero's journey. So you can't really compare yourself to others and expect any kind of positive results for yourself. There is such a thing as healthy competition, yes, but more likely it's going to be that you start trying to become someone that you're not. It's best to be yourself. The tarot will really reflect on who you are and what is best for you. Another thing to know is, where does your answers come from? So I believe the answers very much come from your higher self. And if you meditate and open yourself up, then you can also start tuning into even hearing and feeling answers that you don't even need to look into the tarot, because you become very intuitive. Because I have a theta healing background, I work with Creator of all. So that is the meditation I do every day, and I always strive to get my answers from that place. So it can be difficult sometimes, because this is a place of non-judgment, and it's very human to want to judge everything. So we're going to practice on a meditation to be in a non-judgmental energy of pure love and pure creation, and practice sitting in that energy and just feeling the love, feeling that you are accepted and loved for who you are, and that you can also let go of a lot of your judgments. And this will really help you have flow in your life. So those answers from the Creator are very in tune with your higher self. It is very in tune with your higher self. So when you do another meditation we're going to do, which I call the Escalator and Phoenix meditation, you're going to actually sit and have an experience what it's like to talk to your higher self. And your higher self might look differently, might have a few different, maybe even a completely different vibration and feel. Maybe you're a real old soul, and maybe you have chosen a body that's very kind of impulsive and a bit out of control, so it doesn't really add up to then you seeing yourself as an old soul, as your higher self, but you've chosen a body due to learning potentials. It's actually sometimes people choose a body and a brain and an ancestral line that is completely different from who they really are on a soul level or a higher self level. So then it's all about integrating the different sides to yourself. When you start being more intuitive, you become open to a lot of things. So it's very important to be grounded. Being grounded and connecting to the Creator of all that is really very similar. Once you are connected to the Creator, you are also very grounded at the same time. And you are strong in your energy. So don't be afraid to be strong in your energy and have very good boundary around yourself. Don't feel like because you're doing this type of work that you have to be super, loving to everybody. You need to have very strong boundary, because you're in a physical body, and you need to have some limitations to who you allow into your life. In your heart, you can have love for everybody, but it's very important to have strong boundaries on who you actually allow into your life to influence you in your life. That is incredibly important, especially for intuitive people, because toxic people have a very bad effect on us. Okay guys, so now let's get started on our video training. Let's get started on our card combination. So you might already know tarot. Let me move myself a little bit out of the way. Maybe you already know the card meanings, but if you don't know the card meanings, you'll understand a little bit about the cards just by looking at them, because the card meanings and the scene that's played out in the Rider-Waite deck, it is really very much the meaning. So you can kind of see here, there's a lot of energy here in Eight of Wands. And this is a card for energy. Six of Cups is very much like a very sweet card. It speaks of children, so it can often speak of your past, you know. And Page of Wands, it's a person, it's a personality. So if it really would be a good idea to have a little bit of understanding about the tarot. So you go to tarotwingy.com and just have a look at how the cards are organized. The link is here. Just to understand what I'm going to tell you about card combinations. Makes sense once you know how the tarot cards are organized. Let's make it really easy. The first rule is Minor Arcana cards versus Major Arcana cards. That's how it's organized in the simplest way. Major Arcana cards are about the big things in life, but I look at it actually as more divine intervention often. We're being really taken care of when there's a lot of Major Arcana cards, but we also feel like life is a bit out of control. Minor Arcana cards is more like us, what we're doing on a day-to-day life, our efforts basically. So Major Arcana card, divine intervention. Minor Arcana card is our intervention. So that's how the simplest way you can understand the major versus minor. Here, how would you start with a 3-card group? Basically, it's 3 minor arcana. So straight away you know that it is the seeker's interventions that is at play. You also have a court card. And you have 2 wands and a cup card. And another way you can also look at it to break it down a little bit for yourself is, why is the seeker asking the question? Why are they asking a question? And how can you even begin to understand that? Well, if you look at the second card and think of the second card as maybe here is a problem. So how can you read this card in more of a negative way? So it's something to do with the seeker's past that they're trying to move away from. Let's see what happens if you shuffle the cards around, because then you have a new card combination. And the Page of Wands is the first one. So that means that this situation is really created by a person. It's a fun personality. You see that also in Eight of Wands. It's like energy even moving up towards the seeker. So they manifest seemingly out of nowhere. They draw people and situations to them. So that could mean that the seeker really need to know how this situation is affecting them, good or bad, because it could be a bit of volatile energy. Look at the second card when you're doing a 3-card layout as perhaps why there is a problem in the first place. In fact, I always really look at the second card when I'm doing any kind of spread or layout that just looks at a situation. So even if this was a 5-card layout, I would still look at the second card as more the obstacle. A lot of people ask me, does a court card speak of a personal situation? It really is both. It is a person who creates a situation. So this is someone who creates a lot of opportunities. So this could be a scenario where the seeker really is creating a lot of opportunities for themselves. And a lot of people are drawn to them. They're very charismatic. If they're asking about another person, then this is a person who really is an all or nothing kind of personality. They seem to be the life of the party. They are fun to be with, but situations can also sometimes get a little bit out of control. Look at the second card when you're doing a tarot reading like this, a 3-card or a 5-card reading, as more what the problem could be. So Eight of Wands is more of the problem, could be then situations can quickly kind of get a little bit out of control. So then means you need a strong boundaries with this person. So also look at what is lacking. What is lacking tells you sometimes more than what showed up. What is lacking in this situation is there are no swords and no pentacles. So the seeker really needs to use their head and have a good head on their shoulder dealing with this situation. To have a cool head. And there's no pentacles either, so that means that the seeker perhaps is not in a very good routine. Maybe they can run out of resources. But in this situation, it's really all about the travel and the adventure. So they need to maybe do a little bit more planning so they know they're not going to run out of resources. Or then if they do also decide to go on a big adventure, have a look at this third card as a bit of an advice. This is a final card, so this is more also what to aim for, to go to places where you actually also want to be safe. Because Six of Cups speaks of where you are really feeling at home and where you have safety as well. So this could really give you an advice on a travel situation that could quickly get out of control if you don't put a bit more planning into it. So let's have a look at another situation where a completely different card showed up. So we'll do first card, Hanged Man. So that's a Major Arcana card. So this is creating a different situation. Now there's more divine intervention. And then we got Ace of Wands as our final. So here basically it is more divine intervention. You're being moved to where you need to be. And everything will be provided for, as you see in the Magician. He has all the suits. That basically means that you will have everything provided for you, but you need to get started. So if this was an actual reading, what the seeker really needs to do is to get started. They've been holding themselves back. And what could be the problem then when you look at the Magician is like, it could be when you're holding them, when the Magician is laying like this, it's more like a problem. All the resources falling off the table. So that could be then that they really need to communicate clearly what they need and want. There could be big miscommunication, and also maybe someone is sabotaging them a little bit, because the Magician is a really good ally to have this way, but when it's more of the problem, then it could actually be someone who is more sabotaging you than anything else. So the seeker really needs to have a new beginning, but they need to get started. When the Hanged Man, it's like he needs to take a step back to reevaluate everything. And basically what he's reevaluating is this situation here. And it is maybe when there has been a bit of miscommunication, a bit of lies, and a bit of fear-based. And maybe there's been big promises made, but nothing really came out of those promises. So the seeker really needs to get started and not rely so much on others. They need to be more self-reliant. So you can see that here in the Magician can be actually a con man when you see the Magician like this. It becomes almost the opposite. So if it's not an actual absolute con man, it can mean someone who is a bit deceitful. And it's not helping the seeker who really needs to know what and how they can rely on this situation. So what they can do, what they really need to do is to just get started, take the first step, and they need to move away from someone who is possibly lying, even taking away a lot of their resources and wasting their resources. So when you get a kind of a situation like this, when you get a Hanged Man and the Magician, they're very opposite. It can mean that someone is really wasting their resources. But the advice is here for the seeker to get started and play their own game and don't get dragged down with this person or situation here. So basically also you have to also look at what... Okay, so when you look at what didn't show up here, you got less minor than major. So the seeker could feel completely overwhelmed actually by this situation. And perhaps they have a fear of commitment themselves, and that's created the situation here with the Magician, where there's a lack of actually commitment, because the Magician, when he's at his best, is really a good ally. It's someone it's a situation that provides well for you in any way that you need. But when it becomes more of a problem, and it is a problem coming as a second card often, and then there's a lack of trust in these resources, and that could be valid. Or it could be that the seeker really does not want to commit to this, and maybe the seeker is his or her own worst enemy. So here's another example where the answer really, you can really see the answer in what didn't show up. Because when all the suits are showing up, and we got all the suits except for Pentacles, when all the suits show up except for one, you really need to look at why is there a problem. So you see here the seeker is moving forward in Six of Swords, you see confidence and popularity in Six of Wands, and then you see Four of Cups, but he's looking at Three of Cups. And that means dissatisfaction. So why is it dissatisfaction? Because the popularity feels like it's not real. He doesn't feel like he's either earned it or he or she feels perhaps that it's based on something that they can't really follow through on. And the Pentacles, lack of Pentacles, basically mean that they don't trust in the foundation. They don't really feel like their routine is satisfying, and that's why there's dissatisfaction here. And that's what they also need to look at, is there's something else presenting itself that is actually better. But someone could even be asking them for help or wanting to connect with them, but they're not noticing. There's no court card either. So it's like there's no people in their life that perhaps at this stage giving them a lot of meaning. Maybe they feel like relationships are a bit empty at this stage. And there's actually a lot of self-sabotage seen here. The seeker is self-sabotaging. So they need to let something go that is unsatisfying. And then they need to focus on something new that's about to materialize, that is satisfying. And that will give them more security and happiness. So they most likely have a complete fear of failing and a tendency to self-sabotage. So what they can work on is to work on deepening their relationships and to find a routine that is satisfying to them, and also to let something go that isn't satisfying. Even though they're really tied up, their ego is really tied up in this, but it's not really giving them any satisfaction, and they really need to let it go. So also there is no divine intervention at this stage, and that is kind of good news actually, because that means the seeker you really can trust the seeker here to work this out themselves. It's not a crisis situation. The 2 6s also really speak of the seeker very much wanting to be in charge of their life and situation. And when people have that attitude, they often create a really positive outcome for themselves. So I would say that this actually was a very good card combination in many ways. Okay, so here is a very interesting card combination. And if you learn the arrows technique, then this actually creates a success. This is success here. So even though there's a bit of a power struggle, because King of Pentacles is the second card and then it becomes more of a problem, it's a bit of a power struggle. It's a power struggle that actually will work out for the seeker. So this situation is teaching the seeker to step up. And because without this here, they'd probably be stuck here, because they need a bit of that challenge to rise up. This challenge that you see here will make them go into 10 of Wands. And 10 of Wands speak of someone who works really hard, but they're also very skilled, and they often have responsibilities because they are capable. And a lot of people are also watching and understanding that they are very good at their jobs. It's a bit of putting on a bit of a show as well. You see, this is actually one of the stage cards, the 13 stage cards. This is one of them. So that means that you will get noticed for your efforts, and you also know how to show everybody how much you do and how well you're working. So if this was an actual real reading, there is a power struggle. You see that here. There's another person here, but this seems to work out well for the seeker. They're actually playing kind of a little bit of a game to their advantage here, and it's going to work out for them. What is working and what isn't working is that the seeker is very strong-minded. That's working. What isn't working is there's a lack of cups. And lack of cups means often there's a bit of lack of creativity. So they can incorporate a bit more creativity, then that will get them out of an old pattern seen here. The old pattern could be they're a bit self-conscious. So everything that they do is a bit, it's very much tainted by their self-consciousness, that they're thinking a lot about how they look and things, rather than just get to the bottom of the issues. So creativity and actually with the creativity comes the enjoyment, that will lift a big burden from the seeker, and they will actually be more in the flow then. The seeker most likely desire a new way of life, and perhaps even away from certain people. So if they focus more on their creativity and their lifestyle, they'll be able to go from just working really hard and banking all the money. There's a lot of abundance seen here. and also only being motivated by financial reasons to actually have more joy in their life. So sometimes you see when people work really hard, but what is really lacking is perhaps an emotion, and that can be like lack of joy. But once they realize that, okay, there's a lack of joy in my life, but I can incorporate more joyful energy, and that's going to have a positive effect on a lot of other areas of my life. Okay, so in this card combination, you see only pentacles, and you see one court card. So all minor arcana cards and all pentacles and one court card. So when one suit shows up in full like that, it means that this is really what is going on in the seeker's life, and they're living maybe very much on one side. So here they're living very much on the physical, dealing with perhaps a lot of paperwork, they're dealing with a lot of business and maybe studies, they're dealing with working, so maybe they just study or work, go home, but there's not much room for anything else. What are they actually aiming towards is actually a family. So they could work really hard because what they want is a family. So they put themselves under a lot of pressure to have a family. And there's also so often when you see, especially with 10 of Pentacles with a 6, any kind of 6, can be very strong family connections as well. So maybe they are stepping into a role that what is expected by their family. But there is a studious side here in Page of Pentacles, but it's something that they think is very sensible. So they're living very much on the sensible here. So when the other suits are lacking, it's basically that there could be a lot of options available to the seeker that they're just completely unable to see it because they have lived a certain way and they only know one way, and that's basically how they're going to continue living. So they don't really see any options because it's completely outside of everything that they are aware of is even possible. So they could live very much a life that it seems like they're following in the footsteps of their family expectations. And also it could be that some of them have inherited some money, or there's family money available to them, but they feel also very obligated then to live a certain way. So then why would the seeker come and ask for a tarot reading if this is the case? So you have to then look at the second card. Here's a little bit the problem. The fact that they don't really live one way, and maybe there's a bit of snobbery as well. See that in Page of Pentacles when it's like that. They think maybe they know everything already. And maybe they're living, they think they're very charitable and they think they're doing very good things, but they don't always see how everything is connected, and this way they can actually make a few mistakes. So with their attitude at the moment, they could actually run into a little bit of problems with other people who maybe are very highly strung as well. Okay, so in this card combination, there is actually a lot of spiritual energy in here. This is really divine intervention, 3 major arcana cards, and also it has an angel here that when you do my tarot meanings course, you'll actually see what the symbolism mean. And this card basically means you need to have a divine perspective on things. And the divine perspective will happen. You will have an awakening. When you get cards like this, there will be an awakening in your life. And here, the moon, that's just where everything is kind of in the dark. Everything is uncertain, and everything looks like it could be scary and frightening because everything is in the dark. So even like something harmless will look like a monster. And you're running kind of high on adrenaline, and you're in survival mode, and more of your primal nature is, you're in fight or flight, for example, all the time. Then judgment comes and wakes you up to have a divine perspective. And that divine perspective really sets you free, as you can see in the Fool, and you have a completely new beginning. And here it's all on an emotional level. The Fool operates on joy, bliss, and happiness, and there is no fear. To the point where, you have to have some awareness of danger, because you see the Fool here is really on his way, perhaps, who knows where he will end up. Maybe he's just a bit of a risk taker, but he's right on the edge there. So It can mean that you're so excited and happy about your newfound spiritual awakening that you're living life to the extreme, to the point where you can isolate yourself to the extreme, or you are adventurous and risk-taking to the extreme. What you are learning though is to integrate your spirituality in a way that gives you meaning here on, to live your life in a meaningful way. And that is really the lesson. So this is a brand new beginning here. You could end up in a completely new, different part of the world, or you could end up in a new relationship, or in a completely new job, with new friends. Something completely new is taking place because you are no longer going to live in this energy. So often the environment will change as well, because this situation you were in here was also created a little bit by the environment as well. So you needed to snap out of it, and maybe you can even go back to this environment, but you will be completely changed. So this year is the beginning of something amazing, and there's often a huge learning curve ahead, but the seeker really will approach this with a lot of joy and happiness. So they could have even been they were really going downhill fast, and then they had maybe a divine, they had literally divine intervention, and they were taken out of that situation. Why would they come for a tarot reading if it's this great? So Judgment ends up here then. So the Judgment then ends up a little bit on the cross. So that means it can be hard then for the seeker to trust in their divine intervention. Maybe they feel that they really need to trust it and live it, but they're just terrified of it, and they end up actually trusting in something they shouldn't instead. And they end up denying their divine intervention, and they end up using their free will actually to completely block out what was meant to actually save them. So they were meant to have a new beginning. They were meant to have open their heart and be excited and enthusiastic about life again, but maybe they were too afraid of the light, or they were afraid of judgment, and they were afraid of, they thought it was going to be bad, but which actually was meant to help them. So this is where you, if you were to read for someone, if you're reading for yourself, you see, okay, here there is a divine intervention happening, but you are instead perhaps going more into hiding in the darkness instead, in a dead-end relationship, for example, or in a dead-end job, or in a place where you know you don't belong, and you're just burying yourself deeper rather than letting this aha awakening take you out of it. And it's mindset again. You need to really embrace the idea that there is something better for you. Okay, so in this one we got the High Priestess, Temperance, and Four of Swords. And Four of Swords is a final card, so that's significant. So there's two majors and one minor. So here it's really, again, these are very spiritual cards, so it's time for you to, like, if you get this card combination, to really rest and start listening to your divine guidance. High Priestess can speak of your divine mother, and Temperance here can speak of your divine father. It can also speak of your relationship with mother and father and how it's affecting you in your life. And what you really need is to quiet your mind and start thinking about things more again from a spiritual perspective. So this is, they want you to meditate, they want you to rest, they want you to start listening. So there's a strong emotional connection to a female, could be mother or grandmother. And if that person has passed over, then this could really represent that person who wants, on the other side, who really wants to support you and be there for you. And the same thing here with Temperance, can be father, but often it is guardian angel when it comes to Temperance. So Temperance here is actually going to be a bit of the problem card. So when Temperance is a problem card, it's actually that it's hard for you maybe to trust in the spiritual. So maybe you don't trust in it, you can't feel it, or you can't feel the energy, you can't feel the love and the support. So what they're saying, what this advice really is, for you to start meditating and start opening your heart. And also, when you get this card combination, there's great wisdom that they want to share with you. and that wisdom you can blend into your life actually, and have to incorporate it into your life. And for many of you, if you get this card combination, you're actually a great teacher as well. So now I'm incorporating also the card meanings into their card combinations. But for many, they are such spiritual beings that once they get this right here, they are actually spiritual teachers, because there's a lot of spiritual support for them. They just need to connect properly. Maybe there's a bit of restlessness in them, and they're unable to relax. Therefore, when you're about to get the message, maybe you feel restless and you're stopping yourself. The next video, what we're going to do is something a little bit different, because now we're going to work on intuition more. So now you're going to scan cards. So we're going to do a 5-card combination reading. So this is the next video. You're going to do a meditation, and you are going to scan the cards. We're going to lay it out once. I need some more space for here. So it's going to be 1. So we're going to look at 1. And we're going to look at 2. So then that's the sort of the block. And then it's the advice here. You're not going to look at that. Then it's your distant past that created this situation, your childhood. And then it's recent past. And then what we're going to do, we're going to do a meditation. You're going to find out what this card most likely is. And if you might see the card, maybe you'll just see what the card is. But for a lot of you, what you will get is what the advice is going to be. And then when you get what the advice most likely is going to be, when we're going to look at it after the meditation, you'll want to incorporate your intuition to interpret the card. So here we got 4 of Swords. Then you will incorporate what your advice was, but then also in the context of what the card is. So that's how you incorporate intuition and cards. So that is going to be the second video. So you're going to learn a meditation to connect to the creator of all, to supercharge your readings. So the next video is going to be incredibly important to be able to give an intuitive reading. Now, if you haven't got any idea about card meanings, you can go on Tarotwingy and you can do a little bit of studying. You don't need to study deeply all the cards. You can go on, have basically broken it down, so you can go to the Major Arcana card, you can quickly read through, go to the Minor Arcana card, and you can quickly read through. There's a lot of keywords and just short sort of like snippet of, so you can get kind of like what the core meaning is. And that's all you really need to be able to get started, because it's really going to be about how to interpret card combinations and how to do intuitive reading. That is the most important thing. Okay, guys? So I can't wait for the next video. Bye!